Greetings from Southern Yankee Homestead. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Well, we're going to be putting a hitch on the Jeep today. For those of you that didn't read the description, this is a 2022 Wrangler Unlimited JL with EcoDiesel. We've ran into several issues with getting a hitch on this. The biggest one is most websites that I found, Amazon, e-trailer, plus a couple others, the hitches they make for the JLs are not compatible with the EcoDiesel, or at least that's what they're saying. So I went back to Chrysler, went to a dealership I trust, R2, thank you, and over the course of hour and a half, calling Chrysler, looking at different part numbers, pulling up VINs for trailer packages on JLs. We found that there are actually 3 hitches for the JLs. This is the one they had in stock. The other 2 hitches are identical except for one thing. This one has 2 bolts or 2 nuts right here welded on. There's a version that these aren't on here, and there's a version that has all 4 welded on. This particular one only has 2. So that's the main differences in the part numbers as far as we can tell. Even Chrysler, the tech line that the dealership uses, couldn't confirm that this hitch would fit. So I bit the bullet, went ahead and purchased it, and over the last day or so I've been doing a lot of research on this. Part of the reason I'm doing research is because the instructions on this truly suck. I mean, it's probably good if you speak, let's see, that looks like German, looks like some Moroccan, I see Russian, Romanian, Chinese, Japanese, Arabic. But as far as English goes, there's only like JL trailer hitch, Mopar, go to step 2, go to step 6, install first, and that's about it for English words on here. I guess fascia dependent would also be, but for the most part it's pictures. So getting into the instructions, go to step 2 is, depending on, from what I've gathered, if you have a steel bumper or a plastic bumper. If you have the steel bumper, there's an additional support that utilizes 2 of the bolts from the trailer hitch. And if I understand it correctly, it actually uses these 2 bolts from the trailer hitch. The steel bumper has a bracket that goes over this with larger holes for these 2 center ones. So, if you're doing this on a JL EcoDiesel with a steel bumper, it is recommended you remove the trailer hitch. We have the plastic bumper. We're not removing the trailer hitch. The other thing that was of concern when I got into this, everything as far as torque goes is in Newton meters. Well, I don't have a torque wrench that reads Newton meters, so I had to do a conversion. And the conversion for this is 90 Newton meters is about 66 foot-pounds of torque. I guess I could break out my torque wrench. Let's see, so 60, let me go ahead and adjust this to 66. $66 foot-pounds converts over to, what's that, somewhere just shy of 9.7 centimeter per, I don't know, centimeters per meter. Anyhow, we're torquing it to 66 foot-pounds. Now the tools that we're going to need for this, and I'm missing one tool I gotta grab. You're going to need an 18mm wrench, box end, open end, I don't think it'll matter that much. You're going to need 18mm socket, big surprise there. Torque wrench. You're also going to need a ratchet wrench, although you could do it with a box end wrench, but we're going to do it with a torque wrench. And then you're going to need 2 extensions. Hopefully when I get underneath I'll be able to show you why we need 2 extensions, but a long extension is not going to work here, and on top of that we're using a wobble extension. So if you look, the end has a little bevel to it. If I put the socket on there just right, it allows it to have just a couple degree of rotation. If I put it on all the way, it's straight. Back it out just a hair. You'll see why in just a few. And of course the other thing you're going to need is the hitch and the installation hardware. But that should go without saying. Alright, let me get some lights set up and we'll be... This is the muffler, where the tailpipe is right behind the camera, right back there. And this is the cross member we need to attach to. Naturally heat shield, def tank right there. So, let's see if I can get a better view of this here. Don't know if you can see it or not. That bolt right there and this bolt right here, I believe. Let me grab another bolt. Yeah. So, it's hard to tell, but basically the def tank is not allowing the bolt to go into the hole straight so it can go through the cross member. So, even in frame? Yeah. I know it's hard to see because it's black on black, but I got the hitch installed. I ended up using just about every extension that I had, including 2 of the long ones with wobbles, torque wrench, regular ratchet wrench with a 16mm, 18mm socket, 18mm wrench. Then I broke out this bad boy so that I could get a little bit more leverage on the back side of it as I was getting near the 66 foot-pounds of torque. Now, ideally, if you were doing this, I would say you want to pull the def tank completely out of the vehicle. That would be ideal, because then you could just go in there with a straight wrench, or a straight torque wrench. I backed the bolts out for the def tank all the way out, and then I threaded them back in about 2 full turns. That allowed me to tip the def tank down enough so that I could get a wrench in there with a wobble or a universal joint, if you have one of those, to get everything torqued up. With the tank out, you could have gone straight at it. Another option would be if you had a dog bone. A dog bone will look like this, but it will have an end like this on it. So there's There's an equation that you can do, because when you put a dog bone on a torque wrench, it changes your torque settings based on the length of the dog bone. So it's not exactly 66 because you're putting a different torque on there than you would. So it might be more, it might be less. I can't remember what it is, but I know there is an equation. So if you had a 18 millimeter dog bone, you could go in without a problem, torque everything down once you did the math for it. I don't have them. I'm not going to buy them. I don't use them enough to warrant having them. I just know in aviation we used them. We had torques we had to use them with, and the torques were different than a straight torque, if that makes sense. Anyhow, will a Mopar hitch work on a eco diesel? Yes. I believe, depending on design, any hitch will work on an eco diesel. The problem is getting the bolts in and getting them torqued. It's important to torque them correctly. If they're not torqued correctly, you're putting 3,000 pounds behind this thing and towing it. You could do frame damage, you could lose your trailer, you could get sued if it's not done correctly. Torque it correctly. Now, with that being said, there's another piece we need to go ahead and install on this, and that is the wiring harness, so that we can have actual trailer lights. You know, those things, kind of nice to have every once in a while. Other people get angry if you don't have them. I don't know why. Don't tailgate. Pay attention to your surroundings. You won't run into my trailer if you're doing that. Anyhow, we know they're not going to do that, so let's go ahead and get into that. Now, the wiring that we're using is a CURT custom wiring harness made for this vehicle and Gladiators, apparently. It says JL Unlimited, but it's got Gladiator instructions as well as Wrangler. So if you don't know, the new Wranglers use a CAN bus system. You can't just splice into the wiring harness and run trailer lights. It will mess up the computer. Basically, there's a power wire and electronics turn on the tail lights as needed. Not like the old school where you actually depress the brake and it puts a signal through to the tail lights to turn on, or your physical switch. It's all controlled by computers. So with that, you got to have a module style harness. So this harness has this basically computer for it that will read off the vehicle's power and convert a power wire that we have to run to the battery into a signal that will light up the trailer lights. It's basically a completely separate electrical system from the vehicle electrical system. Yeah, it's more complicated, but that's what you get with modern vehicles. So this kit comes with that, as well as a fuse holder, a cover. You got your harness, wire, and it comes with this stuff here. Now, if you know me, you know I hate these connectors. These connectors should not be used on a vehicle. To quote Andrew Camerata, those are garbage, and I don't know why they put them on vehicles. So what we're going to be using looks very similar, but these are heat shrink style. They're waterproof and vibration proof. These are not heat shrink style. These are crimp on and pray that they don't ever get wet. And when they do, pray they don't burn your vehicle down. Along with that, I got the appropriate terminals that are heat shrink also, so when they're up on the battery, we don't have a problem there. Other than that, I think we got a screw to place. Should be, yeah, there's a ground wire there. Tools, so far what I found, you're gonna need a flathead. I just grabbed a little one because I had a wide head. Because to get the tail lights off, you actually have to go in here, pop this plate off, and then there's a screw down in here that you have to back out. If you got a new Jeep, it just so happens that they come with a toolkit for removal of the top. Well, someone actually got smart for a change, and in the toolkit is a T30 Torx that we can use to remove the taillights. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start on the drivers and go to the passengers and work our way through it. Alright, so with our fancy Jeep toolkit, it even says Jeep on the ratchet. And this is a plastic plug with a spring, so be careful. Now in theory, yeah, and if you're not worried about water, you should be. So, looking at this looks like our plug right here. Little red tab. And it should be pushed down somewhere, and this should just come right out. Alright, I rummaged through my spare nuts pile and I found a nylock that fits over one of the gate latch bolts. So we're going to go ahead and use that to attach this. We're going to use one of the gate latch bolts. Alright, so as you can see right there, that's one of the back of the gate latch bolts. And if you look right above it, see that little screw hole? Let's see if I can do this. So this is still within the body. I got, you know, basically 2 knuckles in there. And what we're going to do, we're going to use 2 washers for spacers. And we're going to use a standard self-tapping screw. So we're just going to put this here, put the washers behind it, just as a standoff to get over that lip. Tighten it down. Now the reason I did that is because there's a lip in there and I don't want this to be flopping around all over the place. So I just put those washers on there to hold it. Now we got to go ahead and, probably should have done this beforehand, sort out our wiring. So this one is going to be going to the passenger side if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to pull this out because of as long as that is. And this should be our driver's side. So, in theory, like this, clips in, and this one will clip into our tail light. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and run this down through and out. Don't need that anymore. And we've got to run this through to the other side. So let's see what we got for distance here. That's going to be cutting it close. Let's see. Looks like we got a hold there. Do you have anything back here? something to pay attention to if you're doing this. If you notice there, the latch for the tailgate hooks into the housing. So, don't run the wire through that hole. There, I think we're done on that side. So now we need to go ahead and run this wire. Now they want you to run the wire along the outside of the frame and zip tie it with supplied zip ties. Well, those little zip ties I don't think are going to cut it. What I've seen some people do in different locations is to run the wire inside the cab. I'm going to opt for that, and I'll show you why when I get the wire up front. But to start, we're going to see if we can get the wire through this grommet. I'm going to punch this through. Alright, it was a pain in the butt, but I ran the power wire up through, or down through the frame, all the way up the frame rail, popped up just beside the, inside the fender well, up behind the wiring, and then to here. So the only thing left to do, cut it, put a terminal on it, and plug it in. Moment of truth. Let's see if we blow a fuse. Pretty sure that's in there. we go. All set and all ready. I guess the last thing to do is test it. Thought I'd share this. This morning when I went out and did chores, it was 63 and rain. Hard rain. Well, I just looked out the door. Yeah, it's snowing. All right, 90% sure that this hitch is gonna have too much of a drop on it. But I don't know where my other hitch is, so we're gonna go with this one for now. Alright, so flash, tails, flash, and it looks like it's dim. Sweet. Actually, the trailer looks like it rides pretty good right now. Let's pull it out to where we can into a more level spot, and then we'll go from there, okay? Oh, I probably don't need the 4-ways on. We'll go back to auto on the headlights. Actually, relatively speaking, it looks pretty good right there. So I think we're gonna go with that. We're gonna count that a success. Now, I do want to say that the trailer needs some work. It is on the list of things to do. I need to rewire it, get rid of that funky connector up at the front, and probably put some new deck boards on it, as well as a couple other little things like fix the grate so they're not falling through, you know, things like that. But this is ultimately why I put the trailer hitch on here, is so that I can carry or tow this little trailer. Again, if I'm making trips out to pick up stuff from Facebook, or we're making an ATV trip somewhere or whatnot, a lot easier to take this, or like I'm about to do, it's time to get some more lumber for the shed build. So hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.